Alright. We rested up a fair amount. Feel a bit better. Feel a bit more ready to take on the world. Now it's just a matter of finding the resources that we need. Now, if I remember correctly, we needed that fang. Unfortunately, I destroyed that spider spawner. I feel like that probably would have been a perfect location to get the fangs that we need. So, unfortunately, we are going to have to go and find some new friends. Oh, is that an illager base? I think that's an illager base. That could help me with my spell casting, at least later spell casting. Although I don't know that it's wise to take that on right now. I think for right now we just ignore it. Get some more important resources for our biomancy project. I think for now it's best if we avoid the pillagers. We need to find more food, because food is always a good thing to have. That being said, I think we have a fair amount in our backpack. And then I need to find the creatures that I need. Actually, I wonder if squid would give it. I believe I read somewhere in one of my journals that squid could potentially have those fangs. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's any nearby. That is unfortunate. That being said, we do have some big caves here, so we might get lucky and find us a spider. Oh, there's a bomb on legs. Ooh, it did give us something. A volatile gland. I'm sure I can find some use for that. Fortunately, it is still not what we're looking for. What is that? Tin ore. I don't think we have any use for tin at this time. We're still on the lookout for that one resource. The blueprints that I've been working on are based off of old schematics that I remember vaguely from my homeworld. But it all is dependent on a very special metal, and I'm not sure if it exists. That's more tin. Ow. The only thing we can do is keep moving forward. Eventually we will find the things that we need, but for right now, we just have to keep moving forward. Keep moving forward, keep making progress, and hope that there's nothing unexpected in this world. Well, that certainly looks like a one-way trip. You can barely even see. Doesn't appear to be anything in this cave either. Rather unusual that the denizens of the night are so rare. They always used to swarm in unrelenting numbers in our previous world. But here, they seem dormant. It exists in this world. Osmium. Nope. The fact that this resource exists in this world as well as my home world is incredibly valuable, to say the least. I'm very thankful that it does exist. This means that we could potentially make devices that would help us immensely. An issue that we're always going to have is resources, or rather the amount of resources we have accessible to us. But if we can get these devices, suddenly that issue will go away. But we're going to need more osmium. Merely 6 is not going to be enough. There's a shipwreck down there. This is also an ocean. I might be able to find some squid and test my theory. See if those research journals were true. If it was simply crazed men talking about false information. Ooh, more food. I do love to see that. Unfortunately, not much else. Is that a village? No, that's not a village. That's just a structure. But what is it? It might be one of the inns. I've heard that the villagers in many different worlds have inns that they live within. I know this simply because I once came across an individual who would skip across to different dimensions. Not exactly sure how he did it, but I think we now know how. That being said, I feel that using those portals into limbo is probably not the wisest of decisions. Every single time I see them, it just gives me a bad feeling. Like we're messing with powers far beyond our understanding. And that at any moment, everything could go wrong. But I suppose that is the type of world that we live within. Yet more emeralds. There is a part of me that does feel bad for taking these from the villagers, but at the same time, I feel that I will most likely have more use out of it than they will. At the very least, I can trade it back to them, as cruel of a thing as that sounds. Once again, nothing particularly valuable or useful to us this time. Ah, even more food. I'll never turn down some food. Feels like doing such a thing would be stupid, to say the very least. More gunpowder, more of this. A spell scroll. Healing spell. I have a feeling that I can't cast that on myself, so it's probably not particularly useful to us. Thankfully, there was a fair amount of resources in this place. Unfortunately, it wasn't as many as I was hoping for. I swear I just saw something over there. Perhaps it's simply just paranoia from the world that we just left. Why so many skeletons? Oh, that's unfortunate. Unfortunate for you, friend. I'm afraid my armor is simply too strong for you. Ah, zombies. I hear more of them. Not particularly fond of that idea. Wow. Okay. Is this better than what I have? No. Blink scroll. Interesting. I don't think it's going to be particularly useful to us, though. Unfortunately. Ah, yet another backpack. More gunpowder and some coal, as well as more of this arcane essence. I have a feeling that will be very useful indeed. When we get to that point. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's anything else in here. More tin. Unfortunately, that's not what we're looking for. Even more tin. It seems as though the ore that we're looking for appears to be relatively rare, which is unfortunate to say the least. Whole bunch of zinc. Oh, hello. This is where you are. Did see an ore right here, but I think it's more, yeah, this is more tin. Unfortunate. Only we could find more of this osmium. That is so incredibly important to us. Unfortunately, mere hoping and wishing will get us very few results. More tin. Why is snow still falling? That's concerning, to say the very least. Ah, a squid. I apologize for the sacrifice you're going to have to make, squid. What did it give us? Gave us some sinew and some ink sacs. Not particularly useful. What is that? Ah. Nothing particularly interesting. These things even appear underwater? I can only imagine the underwater hell that must be on the other side. Fortunately, I'm not seeing any other squid, which is unfortunate. That being said, I should probably gather some kelp. If I plan on making sushi, kelp is going to be a vital resource. There we go. Plus, I can grow it at any location of my choosing. You gotta love the versatility of a crop like that. Hello. You seem unfriendly. Oh, hi. I'll never turn down some rotten flesh. We learn from past experiences that such things are important. Oh my, there are a lot of you. I wonder, why is it that you're here? Is it because you were defending something? Or simply coincidence? Ah, you are defending something. Curious. I wonder what's in it. Doesn't appear to be anything. There certainly are a lot of you, though. You don't seem particularly friendly. That being said, I've heard that underwater ruins can hold vast riches for those that are daring enough to attempt to take the riches for themselves. Doesn't look like that structure holds anything. These things certainly aren't that threatening. No, hello. What riches do you hold? Coal. And a cave tablet. I wonder what that is. I hear yet more of these drowning zombies. These sea zombies. Not particularly a big fan of them. Yet more coal. Frost ray. Curious. Interesting that I heard one of the drowning zombies nearby, but it's not actively coming for me. I wonder where it went. That's a rather concerning thought. Scorch spell. Ah! Jellyfish necklace. And yet more rotten flesh. Oh, hello. I see you down there. You appear to be a fisherman. Or at least was, at one point, a fisherman. I must say, there certainly has to be easier ways of collecting salvage. But this is the way that we're choosing to do it. May not be the smartest of decisions. If I could breathe underwater, this would be so much more easy. I wonder. Where does not sink in water? Curious. But doesn't seem overly helpful. Okay, it doesn't seem like there's anything else here. So let's move on. I think it'd be wise to head back to the mainland. Swimming out to the middle of the ocean seems like it can only spell disaster for us. I must say, though, these cliffs are quite scenic. That being said, the way that they form is rather bizarre. In fact, if I had to hazard a guess, I would say that these cliffs are most likely not natural. Possibly a result of the cataclysm that occurred, or what I can only assume to be the cataclysm given the state of much of the world. Not only that, but these cliff faces seem far too uniform. What kind of technology or spell would be required to make such violent adjustments to the world? This tree seems suspicious. I wonder if it's one of those bizarre trees. It does appear to be. Nah, it is. It would be best to start storing things. Yet another fake one. A nether portal pet. Teleports to the nether. Now that sounds like it'd be useful to us. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that sounds like it would be invaluable to us. This has gotten to the point where I'm not entirely sure how to get back up there. In fact, I remember this specific location. Clearly, we were here before. If I remember correctly, there was a large cave system here. And if memory serves me correctly, there was plenty of denizens here. In fact, there's a spider there. Come to me, spider. You potentially will give me what I desire. What I need the most. I don't think he dropped anything. Unfortunate. But bomb on legs. Yet more of the volatile gland. It certainly seems like it'll be useful to us. Fortunately, I'm not seeing anything of value. Specifically when it comes to what we're looking for. Oh, I think I might see a spider off in the distance. It's too dark to tell. That is indeed a spider. And we have yet another bomb on legs. Where did that spider go? There are two of them. Come here. You two, come here. A shield. Unfortunately, I cannot use that. And a bile gland. Fascinating. But unfortunately, once again, not what we're looking for. Perhaps the journal was incorrect, and that spiders do not give the fangs that I desire. That being said, I'm sure this bile gland will prove to be useful at some point. If you assume that you can defeat me, then I'm sorry to say that you are poorly mistaken. Even as I am now, not particularly powerful, I'm still far more than equal to handle you. No. You, on the other hand, are a problem. Go away. Unfortunately, we don't have our boat anymore. I mean, the boat would prove to be incredibly useful right now. At least I don't think we have the boat. Perhaps in one of my many backpacks we do actually have the boat. No, it does not appear that we do. Unfortunate. Perhaps I do something that I wish not to do, which is use a special spell I have access to that allows me to see the world around me. However, I can only use this spell so many times, and I would rather not waste it unless absolutely necessary. It provides invaluable information, even the creatures that are around me at this very moment. But as I just said, it comes at a cost. I can only use it so many times before I'm no longer capable of using it at all. As a result, it's an incredibly valuable tool, but one that must be rationed. I cannot simply use it whenever I wish. There we go. That being said, I do currently possess a theory. Within the previous world and this one, both existed, or well, both possessed the Nether. My theory is that these dimensions that we have access to within both worlds are perhaps somehow connected. We may not have access to the same region within the Nether, or even the End, but I theorize that they are perhaps somehow connected. If my theory proves to be true, perhaps we can go between worlds. Such a thing would be a tremendous boon, but also potentially a devastating tragedy. As if the creatures that I escaped from ever figure out how to traverse to this world, we may have more problems than we can handle. Which is why it might be wise to solely use this strange nether portal pet as it does not create a physical link between our world and the nether dimension. Rather, it creates a temporary portal that we may step through before collapsing behind us, and, as a result, could potentially prevent such creatures from reaching into our world. That is, of course, assuming that this theory is true. I have no information to say that this theory is true or not, but perhaps it would be safe to be on the cautious side. Hello. Don't mind if I do. This structure is rather unique. I wonder if a mage once lived here. We've encountered mages before in this world. I wonder what type of mage this was. It seems that he had a fascination for skeletons. Oh my. This individual certainly had a fascination for skeletons. Either that, or was a mage that specifically specialized in the undead. Either idea is concerning. Perhaps preventing you from escaping would be wise. There we go. No longer can you spawn and become troublesome for me. That being said, I hear more skeletons. I'm not entirely sure where they are. How far did you go? There's plenty of supplies. While it's not the best of supplies, it is still, nevertheless, supplies. Ah, diamond horse armor. Such a thing could prove invaluable. And a lodestone. Once again, such a thing could prove to be invaluable to us. I believe that candles will also be useful at some point. I do not know if I will end up using a steed. However, if I have access to such a thing, surely it cannot hurt. If I have access to such armor, that is. How many candles? This individual certainly did like their candles. That much I will say. Unfortunately, now it is quite dark in here. Perhaps it is best that we leave now. It would be nice if that amethyst was ready to harvest. Oh well. Sounds as though the skeletons managed to escape. As long as they do not come for me, it is not my problem to have to deal with. osmium also seems to be incredibly rare. That being said, we are barely even looking for it. We're not even going underground all that much. But the fact that we've only just now encountered it, I believe that it is only far off in distant lands that such a resource will be found. Yet still mourning. This is concerning, to say the least. Even after resting and spending so much time exploring the environment around us, it still is only morning. I have a feeling that the days will be brutally long from now on. Whether or not such things are a boon or a curse, I do not yet know. However, the longer that we fight and the longer that we survive, the more experience we gain in combat. The stronger we can make our armor and the better it performs, so long as we maintain it. The more skilled and proficient we become. That being said, there is a very special system that I would also like to get into. A system that could provide us tools and weapons on a level of truly incredible power. Creatures are incredibly loud and incredibly obnoxious. Yet more snow is falling. Mushroom patch. Interesting. I wonder if perhaps those would be useful at some point. Perhaps I should harvest them rather than simply walking past. What a strange world. Both snow and rain fall at the same time. One would assume that such things would be mutually exclusive. I fear that perhaps I am lost. Not entirely certain where I am. Nor do I know where home is from here. Well, I guess not home. The Biomancy outpost. Rude. Perhaps if we get to higher ground, we can find out. If absolutely necessary, I will use my spell, but I really would rather not. This seems perhaps familiar? No, perhaps not. Yet more chicken, though. Never hurts to have more. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Wait, that ship. If I'm not mistaken, that's the same one from before. Perhaps we're closer than we thought. And if that is the same pirate ship that we saw near the outpost, then perhaps just over there is the outpost itself. We may actually be far closer than we originally thought. And if we are, then we can place it on the lodestone and always know where the outpost is. At least until such time as we can get more of these way stones to create more way shrines. Having an excess of those would be invaluable, to say the very least, as it would allow us to teleport wherever we may need to go. Plus, it would allow us to found new outposts as well. Yet more tin. Ah, there's the outpost. Wonderful. Nah, he gave us bile glands. Good to know that such creatures are capable of producing those. I have a feeling we'll need a fair few of those. Unfortunately, we have yet to find the fangs. Which means that unfortunately, it may only come from wolves. I would rather not harm wolves unless necessary. Unfortunately, it may be necessary. That being said, I am not cruel enough to simply kill them all off. We'll grow our little wolf pack, and unfortunately cull it when necessary. Whilst I do hate the idea of doing such a thing, we may not have a choice. However, despite that gruesome thought, we do have some good news. First of all, we have yet another Ender Pearl, which is always helpful to have. Why do you cry? There we go. No more shall this outpost be lost to us. At least so long as we operate within this outpost. We'll always know our way back home. Now then. There was something that I had just thought of that I am going to need to do at some point. But what was it? I cannot remember. That being said, there certainly is other things that are important to us. Let's see if I can remember the recipe of something that is incredibly important to us. We need a book in order to cast spells. That would require hog skin. That will not be an easy thing to acquire. However, this would be an easy thing to acquire. In fact, it should be an incredibly simple thing to make, especially right now. Assuming that I have any leather to begin with. What else did it require? It requires a bit of paper and chains. I'm now regretting throwing those iron nuggets away. Luckily, we have plenty of iron. The idea I had. These spawner fragments, surely they must have a purpose. I surmise that they may be able to be crafted into these spawner frames. From there, I wonder if there are specific items, perhaps even armor that we could craft, that would be invaluable to us. We may need to experiment with that, but for right now I require the sugarcane. If I can remember where I even put it. There we go. And with that, we have ourselves a spell tome. For now, I feel that we should simply use everything at our disposal within this single outpost, but at a later date we really should prioritize specific locations with specific purposes. Now then, let us see here. What types of spells can we utilize? Perhaps we should be a pyromancer. We have quite a few of these spell scrolls. In fact, we have a great plethora of them. There we go. There we go. We now possess spells. And rather intricate ones at that. Let us test some of these spells. Ah, very interesting. I'm sure these various different spells have proved to be incredibly useful. Perhaps we should use these somewhere that isn't quite so flammable. Utilizing fire magic near things that are actually flammable, in hindsight, seems like an incredibly dubious option, to say the very least. I wonder if that will persist. If so, that could be incredibly useful. No, it does not appear to. Unfortunate. Ooh, this one seems like it'll be very versatile. And a smaller version of that one. Although interestingly enough, it requires even more mana. But it also deals more damage. I believe in general this spell will be the most useful to us. Although we must be careful not to simply and mistakenly cast the spell. Whilst I would say that I am certainly no fool when it comes to casting magic, I will also admit that I'm not necessarily the best at casting magic. Ah, my theory was correct. You are capable of creating these spawner frames, with a total of 4 of these spawner fragments. I wonder... No. Perhaps... Spawner boots. Interesting. A spawner chest plate. I do not think it wise to use all of these fragments, however. Spawner legs, but how does one make the helmet? Perhaps it requires something else. Perhaps. Oh, it's a good thing I can't light the dogs on fire. Where was that silk? I swear that we had gathered some. I hope that I am not simply misremembering things. We have cloth. I wonder, can I craft this into silk? It requires 5 as well as some string. Unfortunately, we only have 4. We're going to have to look for yet another one of those strange dungeons. However, I'm not entirely certain on how to find one. This does seem like it'll be armor that will be incredibly valuable to us. Perhaps... I do not wish to, but perhaps we use our spell. Perhaps we look into the world that we normally cannot see, and see what secrets this world holds directly below us. We'll have to glean as much information as we possibly can. As I said, I can only use this so many times. Alrighty then, let us look into the world beyond. Alrighty, let's see. So it does appear that my suspicions were correct. That is a village over there. There appears to be yet another one of these pillager outposts, and perhaps some sort of structure within a ring of water. Some strange structure over here, and yet more of these floating villages. Unfortunately, the exact locations of some of these buildings will only prove to be so useful, solely because we cannot use the spell whenever we need to. And, as a result, we won't simply be able to use it as reference. However, this spell does have an added effect, and that is that we can see below the surface of our world. Let us see what secrets it holds. There appears to be a skulk infestation below us. Most concerning. It does also appear that these dungeons are littered everywhere. That, too, is incredibly useful for us to know. I wonder, the presence of skulk in the area, could this perhaps allude to a structure that we would be incredibly interested in finding? I do not know. It is a bit to our northwest, not super far. Unfortunately, I can already feel the strain of this spell. We're going to have to stop using it, and I won't be able to use it for quite some time. We've gleaned much information. We know that there is the skulk around us, and we know that the structures that we look for are nearby. That's as far as I can go. Unfortunately, it did cost us one of our usages. I believe that it would also be wise to create yet another one of these compasses. Whilst one is bound to the outpost, the other could be bound to the magnetic poles of this world, thus allowing us to determine our exact direction. Such information would be incredibly valuable. Alright, we know which way is north now. This direction is north, which means I surmise that perhaps just right there is where this dungeon is. If I had to guess, I would say just by these trees here. We can't know for certain. However, we can use the broken world to our advantage. And perhaps, just perhaps, get to the locations that we desire. Down into the depths of the world we go. Will we find what we are looking for? I don't know. One small bit of information that I neglected to look for was exactly how deep this dungeon was. I do not have time for you. I hear a slime. I wonder where such a creature could be. Gaining access to more slime balls would certainly be useful. Ah, hello, friend. You seem unaware of my presence. Now you certainly do know. One never knows when they may need slime balls. Thus, such a things are a valuable commodity. We're up to 16. Not a bad haul. Unfortunately, this is not leading us to the location that we truly desire to go to. We require just one of those silk. If we could find it, well, that would be invaluable to us. I do not believe it to be higher than us, which means that it must be lower. We've reached the deep slate layer. Oh. One thing that we do know for certain is that the skulk was everywhere around the structure that we're looking for. So as a result, if we can find skulk, then we know for a fact that we're close by. Unfortunately, this does not appear to be the location. You can still see the surface from here. This place is truly bizarre. fear that we may be going too deep. However, look on the bright side, we found some gold. As well as some raw gold nuggets. Interesting. Yet more gold. Very interesting indeed. Unfortunately, if we're not careful, we may run out of our pickaxe, and it may end up breaking. I believe this to be a fruitless endeavor. Perhaps crawling underground was not the smartest of decisions. If such a thing is possible, this will limit cave-ins, but it does make it incredibly agonizingly slow. This is not what I was expecting. However, it's not something that I will turn down. I'd imagined that this was one of the dungeons that we were looking for, but instead this was something of far, far greater value to us. I've read stories of such locations. They hold great value deep within the earth. However, the threat that they pose is unimaginable. Perhaps, just perhaps, we'll get items of incredible value to us. But we mustn't be too greedy. If the rumors that I've heard are true about such locations, greed will get a man killed in such a place. That is unfortunate. Metropolis of restless souls. Luckily, due to our species' lineage, this makes this process incredibly quick. This place is eerie. It gives me an unsettling feeling. It's so quiet. Almost unnaturally quiet. Almost as if something is indescribably, horrifically wrong with this place. I'm hoping it's just paranoia. However, I feel and fear that it isn't. Regardless of the truth, however, let us gather up as much of this as I can. The old stories and books that I read said that wool is perhaps one of the greatest allies that you can have in such a restless place, filled with the souls of the damned. Is that hay? Why would such a thing be down here? Unless... no, those are barrels. That provides an equally curious question. Why exactly would somebody put these things down here? My. Ah, here we go. A fresh pickaxe. It appears as though I am favored by somebody. Whilst I do not believe it to be God, as I highly doubt God would ever favor me, there is certainly something out there that is looking out for me. A blast furnace. Such things would be incredibly valuable to us. Same with the anvil. No, give it here. Fortunately, it appears as though this backpack too is full. But no matter. If memory serves, these are the things that we must fear above all else. However, that being said, I feel that so long as there is not present skulk around us, such things should not be near us. That was rather unexpected. They do appear to be everywhere. These mushrooms are a problem. Luckily, it does not appear that any of those horrifying things are around. That being said, caution is better than hubris. Does not appear to have anything here. That said, the presence of the diamonds was enough to justify coming to this little area. Let us continue and see what other treasures this horrifying place holds. And there are quite a few of these things. Appears to have at one point been a library. Interesting. I truly do need to pay attention. But does the library hold any knowledge that is valuable to us? That is the question. It isn't appearing that it does. So far, this place seems to be high risk for very little reward. Whilst the diamonds were certainly a boon to find, I would not say that it is justifiable. There's a chest back there. That seems bad. Where even was it? An enchanting table. Such a thing would be such an enormous boon to us. I have a feeling it is outside. Or perhaps up? Could not tell where it came from. There's one far over there, but I don't believe that's the one that we had heard. Now I'm confused. I couldn't tell what direction it came from, but it is surely nearby. Ah, there it is. Such is the source of our misery. Might as well do this one as well. That was risky now that I think about it. For all we knew, there could have been one nearby that we couldn't see. I can't be taking such risks. Bone block. Why are bone blocks here? There we go. Ancient knowledge fragment. Surely such a thing would be valuable to us. Rock of Envy. I believe that the surrounding area is not safe. Let us get. Oh, hello. That enchanting table. A ruined book. An echo fork. Interesting. These sound as though they are incredibly valuable. Let us continue onward. Actually, perhaps it would be wiser if we take a step back, evaluate our situation, and perhaps rest for a little bit. It's clear that the danger that this place poses is immeasurable. As a result, I think it's smarter to take things slowly, bit by bit, whilst allowing ourselves time to rest. I do believe that we're safe this far away. Let us secure this location. Let nothing sneak up behind us. Alright. We are safe now. At least as safe as we can be, so close to such a dangerous location. Let us rest for just a short while. After I've recuperated a bit of my strength, I believe that we should continue. The things that we've gotten so far are proving to be incredibly valuable.